Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this wonderful world in this July day, 2025. I'm Larry Bridgesmith, and I have been fortunate to be a part of the BIM Heroes organization, not because I am a member of the profession of architecture, engineering, and construction, but many of the others are. And so we're going to hear from two of those professionals today as we conclude our series on leadership in the realm in which we find ourselves. And this is the last of those webinars. They've all been rich and wonderful as we consider the ways in which we choose to and learn how to lead better. And today we're going to talk about the legacy that we are leaving and what are the principles that we hope that can survive us. It's far more about our contributions to the industry and to those who are following us. How do we leave a legacy for them to build upon as we have built upon it? And we have wonderful guests, both of whom are extraordinarily experienced in engineering, architecture, and construction, and deeply involved in the BIM movement. Uh, Andrijana, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, and how you got to this place in terms of your professional development?
Yes, thank you, Larry. As you mentioned, my name is Andrijana Nasteska, and I am a BIM professional situated in Denmark. I've been in the industry for over 15 years now. It started off as a passion to become an architect since I was a little girl. And my education started off by learning about architecture and making greater structures. But after finishing my education, I got introduced to the BIM concept actually very early on, back in 2007. And it intrigued me quite a lot because I thought it was finally like a breakdown for what kind of activities we could endure apart from just making having a wonderful idea about a great structure, like all of these other processes that make a building, like the building process to be meaningful and to live on through the operational phase and so on. So that was my story, and I was very lucky that in Denmark we started very early on working with BIM already back then in 2007. So a wonderful experience, wonderful opportunity.
Well, that's a deep and rich experience, and one I thank you for giving so much of yourselves to what you've mentioned, and that is how do we consider the built environment for purposes not merely of getting it done and making the most money doing it, but how can we leave a lasting legacy with the buildings that are constructed? Gabriel, tell us about your journey into BIM.
I thank you, Larry, for having us. Well, I studied civil engineering in Brazil, and I had a brief experience studying structural engineering in Ireland 10 years ago. And today I have around 5 years experience as a professional. And my first contact with BIM was back in Ireland when I had a discipline. If I'm correct, it was like steel structures, and the professor starting teaching us a little bit of Revit. By that time, I couldn't figure out much of what was going on because it was very different. We just had experience with CAD here in Brazil. So I think he planted a seed in my mind, and then like when I came back to Brazil, I started to hearing about BIM, what is BIM, and then I realized that that would be maybe the future is going to be through BIM, going that way, and then I decided to understand really what is BIM about, and I think I was correct because all throughout the world, every country is setting their laws, the initiatives, and so I decided to dive into BIM, and then I met virtually Ralph. I don't remember exactly, and then he started sending me some articles and inviting me to comment, to read the articles, and then he invited me to join BIM Heroes, and I got more and more involved, and here I am, part of the council, and trying to bring some strength to the initiative.
Well, you bring a great deal of strength, and the journey that you've described certainly qualifies you to be a leader in this whole realm. And I learn from each of you, frankly, every day, because the value and the experience that you bring teaches me about the value of sustainability and the legacy of the built environment. So thank you both for all of your contributions. And I have to agree with you, Gabriel. We're all indebted to Ralph. I mean, he is a major maven, if you will, of the way in which BIM has been taught and how he's bringing this community together, global professionals such as yourselves. So it's a great honor to be a part of it. So with that background in mind, if you think about the current environment of buildings and infrastructure today, as it is, in what legacy does it leave if we don't bring into it the principles of BIM and sustainability, efficiency, coordination, and communication? What is the existing legacy of the built environment? What would you say? Gabriel, do you have a thought about that?
Yeah, maybe it's a difficult question. I don't know. Maybe I need to think a little bit more. If Andrijana could start.
Sure. Adriana, you have a thought about that?
Yes, of course. Whilst we have different projects in the built environment, different users of the buildings, it can also be rather not a building, but rather also a landscape. It can be many different areas from the built environment. It's a very good question. This I've been asking myself, like, what kind of a principle should I use so that my role is outlived? Because we have a role, even a tiny bit in a certain project, but it remains, it gives something on, like for the future usage, but also like for the people that were on the team. What I think from my experience is this common shaping of the standards, not country standards, but the project standards for communication, for workflows, for anything regarding this project. If we all give from ourselves, like to give space to each other, so we all feel that we are building this together, feel ownership in the way in the process of the certain project. I think this will live quite long after the project ends. And also I had another thought, like I've had again to mention again different projects, but I was also part of many like pharmaceutical projects during my work, and there you involve the users. You involve them in the process. Like it's not only the team, but the whole team needs to like somehow listen to what the users of the building expect. So I think actually, like if we could manage to collaborate on this level, where we actually all feel that we have a saying, and in the way we manage the workflow, the way we listen to the users, and the manner we solve conflicts, then I think it's also a part of the legacy, not only the finished result, but also like what was going on through the project. And if I can mention one project that gave me still, after so many years, the biggest satisfaction, and I hope my project manager will listen to this at some point, this webinar, is a project for the Copenhagen University. We had a project lead because I was at that time hired by another major engineering consultancy. I'm not there anymore, but it was a great company called EKJ here in Copenhagen. He is a perfectionist, but what he managed to do with this team that we were in from the consultancy team is amazing. And we still talk about this project. But I think it's not only because of the results we delivered, also because of the strength of the team. They gathered us, we were sitting on the same floor, even though we were spread through different departments, all of us having a different role on the project. Some of them, they were structural engineers. I was at the mechanical engineering. Another part was for the landscape and architecture and so on. Wonderful. I'll never forget it, only because of this, that he facilitated a culture where we all felt we could contribute in our own way. And even then, that this was 2012 until 2014-15, even then there was a possibility to work from home. So this was like long before the most companies could say that this was possible. So all of this flexibility, I think really it was amazing.
And some of those teams that we've been a part of probably affect us perhaps even more than the projects we worked on when, as you suggest, we all feel a part, we all feel valued, we all feel that we're contributing. And that's not all that common in business today, in organizations today. So that really does set a new tone, a new anticipation for the next time that we're working with a team that has that kind of capability. Anything you want to add to that experientially, Gabriel, that you have encountered over time?
Just some additions, basically not just agreeing with Andrijana and you. I think when we were involved in any kind of projects, whatever it be, landscape or architecture or structure, as Andrijana said, if we find a meaning beyond that, having the building built, like we can reassess the process, the relationship with people, and we realize that we are going, we have a direction and we have a purpose for everything we are doing. I think we are in the right direction, and I think that in the end of the day is what make it worth it.
Well, I think you both have spoken to the reality that hierarchy is our common method for organizations to function, and it's not that common to have the kind of contributions and the distribution of opportunities and input and exercising our skills that you've described. So how do you transform those traditional hierarchies into collaborative frameworks? Both of you have recognized the value of doing so, but how do we go about helping an organization see the value of a more collaborative work environment, both for the customers, for the project itself, and importantly for those on the team? How can we do that?
Is that for me to begin with?
Yeah, would you please?
Yeah, of course. Yes, this never-ending topic of transformation stories about how do we transform this habit of feeling that we are complying with the standard or the requirement or the expectation to something where we feel we are actually contributing for a greater cause. Mm-hmm. While I still think sometimes I'm very challenged on this because people surprise me every day. We are so diverse. And I think that, the right answer would be that we would need to also focus on what team we have to find out what kind of personalities we work with and adapt to this. So it will never be the same like recipe for how to do this transformation. And it could not affect the whole company. I still think we need to do it through the projects, through the small corners of the company, and then at some point it will flourish. So 3 things I always believe in is to listen, again, like find out who we are on this project, in this team, give space for others to feel that they can satisfy their curiosity, they can ask, they can comment, because like, let's say we have a BIM execution manual and people feel, okay, we need to comply to this manual, but maybe they don't understand all the points in it, or maybe they even have an idea that would make it better. Maybe they were on another project before and they have an idea they want to bring. So giving space for this, even though that I may be BIM manager for this project, I need to listen and be open for improvements from the others. So in other words, this would transform the method of feeling more contributing than only complying to something.
Well, I love that example, and I think I completely agree with you that top-down transformation doesn't work all that well, because if it isn't working for the benefit of those, as you suggest, throughout and in small ways, the entire project and the organization, it's probably not going to happen simply because we're told to do so. But Andrijana, you've given an example of your experience that has influenced how you lead. And what you've just indicated to me is a great way of demonstrating to others in an organization that this collaborative approach, this inviting people to be a part of the conversation, the listening, and the recognizing the various contributions of our different experiences, that diversity has great value, but it takes a leader such as yourself to begin to influence an organization. And that's really the power of the BIM heroes, it seems to me, to be able to do that kind of thing and to transform those traditional hierarchies by example.
Thank you. I agree.
Yep. Gabriel, you have anything to add to that?
Okay, let's go without the camera.
Okay.
This topic remind me of that article about the Greek versus the Roman model of governance. Well, I think it's a very complex topic because in one hand we have this Greek model that is more decentralized, people engage more. On the other hand, we have the Roman centralized model, more rigid, more, how can I say that, following the laws strictly. And I agree with you that maybe it's the role of the leaders, the people that are leading the company, not, how can I say, not only the CEOs or the managers, but anyone can lead in some way. People can encourage the colleagues to participate, to give their ideas, and try to create this more collaborative environment, so we can try to merge these two different perspectives. Because depending on the company you're working, they will be more rigid. They're not accepting more so much the people's opinions. So sometimes it's difficult to give your opinion, your perspective on determined topic. So I think everybody wins with that, and it's good to have this balance between these two models.
And I'm sure we all recognize that there are times and occasions in which hierarchy is essential. But at the same time, how do we combine the two in a very healthy way and allow the organization to benefit from both? That's always the tough issue. So let me ask a question related to that. Have you ever seen a rigid protocol in a project evolve into a living collaborative culture? Have you ever seen an organizational project begin with a very hierarchical command and control, but evolve into something more collaborative over time? Does that ever happen? Have you experienced that?
Should I begin, Gabriel? Is okay? Or do you want to?
Yeah, I'm not so experienced as you all, but currently I'm in a young company. So since the beginning, we had like a basic protocol, basic way of doing BIM, and it's a good example because when it happens some 2 or 3 times, when I found a better solution for some way of modeling or basically doing something better, because we inherited some protocols from a previous company. Me and basically the beginning, more than 5 people were from a previous company we worked together. So we inherited some ways of doing things, and they were very rigid there. In this new company, the CEO were more flexible, and when I proposed different ways of doing the modeling and the process, she said, okay, let's do this way. This is better. This is faster and more effective for us. So this is my example. It's a good example of changing from a rigid, from a flexible way of doing things in general.
And I would add to that, Gabriel, you were the precipitating cause by leading, even though you didn't have the title of CEO. You opened the eyes of an executive to a way of doing things better and differently. And I would hope that it became more normal because of what you introduced. So that's leadership. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And it's a good example because I know all the companies are not this way, but when your CEO or your managers are able to listen, even though you're not a manager or you're just a modeler or an architect or whatever, the company, everybody can get benefits from that.
Mm-hmm. So, Andrijana, have you seen that kind of a transformation in the middle of a project, going from a very rigid approach to understanding the value of distributed decision-making and helping others contribute to the changes that need to be made? Have you witnessed that?
While I haven't witnessed this on a certain project, I during my education, from an educational point of view, I experienced how it is to go from the rigid to the more collaborative manner, because I came from a country, from Macedonia, North Macedonia now, changed the name, where everything was very rigid in the educational system, to Denmark, where actually it was more like you needed to show your own responsibility. Like you need this ownership, you have your ownership, you are participating actively, and you need to show that you're responsible. You get the freedom, all the freedom you want. I was not used to that. And during the education, I learned how it functions. And then when I actually started working in BIM, I realized also that in Denmark in general, this is like the DNA in the Danish workforce, especially in our field. And I felt very lucky, very happy, but it took me some years to learn this, that actually freedom didn't mean lack of leadership. It actually meant that you just need to take initiative and responsibility. And this shared responsibility that we have in Denmark is very valuable. So what I have experienced is the other way around. I very shortly experienced being in a team where, again, it was a very short experience where actually things were rigid. After being so many years in this collaborative process, then this very rigid way of working, of course, I was in it and I was working and so on, but I could feel it. I could feel the tension. I could feel that something was not working, like the communication was lacking. So all of these small pointers were there because of lack of flexibility, lack of trust. Like especially this trusting that people actually know what they're doing while they're on the team, give them the pleasure of co-creating. This was lacking very much. And also like the whole common understanding of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why did we choose this manner of working. Normally everybody knows in the teams we are that I have been a part of, but at this team there was a certain glitch. I feel that maybe it was because it was a very young team and because maybe it was more like top-down management, like we will use this tool and we will do it this way and you just need to do your work. We don't really need your ideas or comments. That's how I perceived it. And I was just a BIM coordinator. So of course I did my work and everything, but I could feel the difference.
Yeah. Well, and if you've experienced the difference, as you've indicated, it never leaves you. That experience shows so much value. Does that require mentorship, do you think? Ralph asks a great question. How do we mentor others in exchanging these experiences and helping them embrace thinking new with an open mindset, as Al-Shima says? How do we go about doing that? How do we mentor others? Andrijana, do you have a thought?
Yes, among many of Ralph's great ideas, and he has shared so many interesting topics with us that actually intrigue us always to think that way. This was one of them. And I remember he also wrote an article about this bravery, like how brave we should be. And I think that bravery is a key point in this question you're asking. It will not always be easy. There will not always be a possibility for us to be in a collaborative environment like I wasn't. And if somebody would have mentored me then, I would find more bravery in me to do something meaningful for the other team members. So in a way, if I could turn it around and think, okay, what would I need in that moment? If I had a mentor, then I think in any way the mentor would mentor me, I would feel that I have more power and I would be more brave to do something better.
Given permission to lead, so to speak. Gabriel, how have you seen mentorship work in your world? Are there mentors that you have looked to and been influenced by? And likewise, are you doing the same with others?
I think Ralph is here listening. I think he's the mentor I have, and I think everybody has in BIM Heroes. And what else you asked?
Are you mentoring or have you been mentored?
Oh, okay.
By others?
Well, I have never mentored anyone, but I had this idea I shared with you in Being Heroes to create like a mentoring environment, so we can, like we're doing now, giving our testimonies and showing our experiences. And I think it would be very nice to encourage the young professionals, the students, and leave this message of encouragement. Besides the technical questions, like how do we dimension a structure, or how do we design a hospital, something like that. I think the social, the human part is very important to create leaders, to keep the knowledge and the values that we want to preserve, and so on.
Well, as Alcima indicated, you are mentoring by participating in this conversation. You're helping others see how you can help yourself through helping others. So we appreciate the fact that every person, whether they have the title or not, we're showing others how we do things, and they're learning from us by example. So I think we need to be aware that we're all mentoring. And if we take that responsibility seriously, then we have an additional leadership opportunity for us. So, yeah, let's talk about the notion of these living agreements. We are trying to understand in the way in which we have and leave a legacy for building, and particularly in the building information management domain. How do we go from a compliance mindset? In other words, you've referenced that, Andrijana, which is a do as I say, not as I do. How do we move from that kind of a rigid structure to creating living agreements through the projects that we lead and the way in which we teach others to do so in a collaborative way? Do you have a thought about that, Andrijana?
Yes, yes, I started to talk about this earlier, and I still stand by it, by this, collective responsibility, collective ownership, but it can only happen if people participate in the living decision making during a project, not a decision made 2 years ago, because we might be on a project that is spanning over several years, can change. Even a decision made a month ago before AI came out, like everything can change both rapidly but also not so rapidly. So we need to be adaptable. And this participation, the possibility that people with their experience and ideas can participate, can change this. It will be like continuous improvement for the project and for us, rather than this, okay, I did my task. Mm-hmm. And I also was thinking about something like I would like to ask if any participants, even if they're not today here on the webinar, maybe they watch it later on, to write in the comments, how do you feel after a major deadline? We deliver the deadline, it's a major deadline, it's the design phase before the construction takes over and so on. How do we feel after that on the team? Like, do you feel empty? Like, okay, do you feel relieved? Finally, it's over? Or do you just feel that this was something worth talking about afterwards, like implementing in another project? And here I think the leader can play a great role in gathering. I mean, I'm talking also from experience, because I just did it on a project where our leader, he is amazing at this. He's gathering the team again after this empty moment of, now we have the major deadline, it's over. Let's recap. okay, some teams, they used more hours than we actually wanted to use because we wanted to maybe have a bigger like earning margin and so on. But then he turned this into the whole conversation about, oh, what did we learn? So what was the learning here? Because that's more valuable than just looking at how much time we spent. And I feel that in our team, we have, all of us, we have this feeling that, okay, now we are actually feeling that we learned, all of us together. And we can go on next time and contribute and use this knowledge. I hope it makes sense. It's just an
No,
idea.
that makes all kinds of sense. Gabriel, did you have a response to that as well?
Well, answering Andrijana, sometimes when we finish a deadline or we deliver the documents, I feel like, as you said, I feel sometimes that would be a very good idea to have these, like the leader coming and say, well, okay, what we have learned from this experience, what can implement to the next projects. Sometimes it's happened, but not so formally. Sometimes we discuss that. And I think this is the, as we were speaking about the, how can we encourage people to contribute? This, I think this is a very good point of starting this, because people can share their ideas, share what they think can be done differently. And I think it's a easy and very good way to do that.
You both are referencing something that, at least in my experience, should be a rigid part, if you'll forgive the phrase, of every project. As a lawyer, everything that we as lawyers do that has a beginning and an end is a project. And therefore, the more we learn from those of you who are project managers about how better to do that, the better the outcomes will be, the more learning will be gained. But I can tell you that it's rare in a legal project for there to be an after action review. Let's look back and let's decide what we learned and how better to incorporate that, as you say, Andrijana, in the process of improvement. What did we want to do differently the next time? It was a long time ago. We had a very large client that came to us as a law firm and asked us if we wanted to do their work. And of course, we wanted to do their work. But they asked a number of questions about us. And one of which was, would we join with the other law firms that represented them in an annual meeting to share what we've learned? An after-action review by all of the law firms that were serving this particular company. And that was very frightening to some lawyers, because that means I've got to own up to things that I didn't do as well as I wished. And some firms just decided not to work with that client. And I found that to be a tremendous loss. So that after-action review is a time to celebrate. It's a time to learn. And as you suggested, Andrijana, the feeling that can come from doing that can really cement the things that we've learned into our legacy of leadership. And that's one of the great benefits, I think, of doing those kinds of after action celebrations and learnings. In the BIM Heroes, we've looked at leadership as a form of gardening. We are gardeners, or tillers of the soil, planting seed, helping them grow. How does gardening relate to how you see your role as a leader in the world that you work in? Do you see yourself as a planter, as a tiller, as a fertilizer of the soil of your teams? And if so, how do you go about doing that? How do we become leaders as gardeners? Does that comparison make sense?
Yes, it's a very good analogy. And I can't stop thinking that if we want something to grow, like gardeners, we need the right conditions. So nothing good will grow if you don't adjust the conditions to the purpose. Yeah, I think also it's a great part of the heroism in leadership, this ability to create the right conditions. And the two examples I mentioned earlier is involving two leaders I have in my experience. And the reason I mentioned them is because I feel that they created these conditions and they did this legacy that I know for a fact that other of my colleagues also have it in this way. So I'm thinking, okay, like if we do something like that, then we will definitely also co-create some other legacy and move on, because conditions will change. We will need to adjust them, but the idea, like the concept of thinking about the right conditions is always the same. Like it's the whole thought of, okay, we need these conditions, then we will make this distribution of leadership rather than concentrated leadership and everybody looking at one person or two persons for that matter that come with the decisions. Like you mentioned also in the legal system, like there might be more, like this is how I understood it, like there might be more rigid because there are some things that need to be done in a certain way. And we also have that. The client has a requirement for something and we need to like accomplish that. I think us as leaders, we have the responsibility to explain it so that we can create and co-create a common understanding of why we need to do this. Not more like, of course, also how, but sometimes why we need to do it. We need to achieve some kind of milestones in order to meet the requirements. And by this understanding, then I think this whole thing happens where people come, okay, okay, we need to do these three things. I would like to suggest this way, and somebody else wants to suggest another way, and then the leader can be a part of it, a part of the decision making, like allowing everybody to come around and together all the ideas and so on. So not to go further from this thought, like this gardening is all about listening, creating space for people to contribute, to ask, to be curious, and also to even now I feel it's still a challenge, like to create this wish that everybody contributes. How to do it? Everybody has their own manner. Even my two leaders, in my experience, that I really highly respect, they have way different methods of doing it, but they managed somehow to do it by being themselves. So it's difficult to find a recipe.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great example because we don't know how things are going to change and we have to be adaptable. Because if we follow the waterfall concept in which everything is predetermined and there's no room for change, well, that's not real. Every project, every activity is going to encounter the need to consider things anew. And if we don't have that adaptability, and it's like a gardener, we didn't anticipate that weed or that pest. How do we adapt to making sure that the soil remains nutritious and that the plant continues to grow? Gabriel, do you think that you're a gardener in the way in which you help others learn how to lead and do the work that you do?
Well, I would like to bring some controversy to the discussion.
Oh, right. We love controversy. Go ahead.
Well, this conversation reminded me of the parable of the sower. I don't know if you know, probably you know. As gardeners, we must be aware where we are planting our seeds, because we can spend our resources, our days working and planting, but if we don't choose the right soil to plant their seeds, it will be in vain, because as in the parable, if you plant the seeds in a rocky soil or very dry soil, it won't be, the seeds won't grow. So I think it's the same in our industry. We need to be aware where we are putting our efforts, and as you already said, we need to be watering the seeds and taking care, and also fostering the growth of the seeds, and trying to make them changing from seeds to people, to encourage them to collaborate, to grow, to evolve as professionals and people in general.
Well, both of you have been very active in the BIM Heroes, and one of the things that distinguishes BIM Heroes is the ability to capture the wisdom. Andrijana, I think you have your hand up. I'd love for you to address whatever you wanted to address, and then we'll move on.
Of course, yes. I just wanted to mention that I completely agree with Gabriel. And I think also we need to be always aware of the fact that there is certain unpredictability that can come from various issues. Like, for example, it can come from the change of team roles. Some teams, they split because somebody got another role somewhere else. It can be many factors. And then the soil changes. So all of these, like preparedness for or flexibility, I think very important, because we can think about this all the time. Like, we need to bring our experience, what we've learned, because we know, okay, now we can harvest something because we made sure that we did it in the right soil. But something can happen again and again and again, so we need to be ready for that.
Well, I love the gardening analogy, because it really does take us to some of the final points that I would like for us to address. There's a phrase that we probably have encountered: what we seed now with intention and care becomes the living memory and the ethical compass to those who follow. And I believe that's what we're all seeking to do, and that's the legacy we're talking about in this conversation. So how do we encode that wisdom? How do we preserve the wisdom for generations to follow? We may have an immediate impact on the generation that we are mentoring or we are gardening, but how do we keep those lessons learned, as they need to be adaptable and flexible as circumstances change, but how do we preserve those lessons for generations to come? Do you have any thoughts about that?
It's for me.
Yes, please.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we become more powerful in the industry, both with tools and processes and everything, education, a lot of new programs. But at the same time, we need also to be more powerful in ethics, because, like you said, with the circumstances, we need to address more and more issues from ethical perspective. And how do we do this? Like, of course, it means that we need to treat each other well, people before all the processes and so on. And I feel that in BIM Heroes in our community, and it's something I always tell Ralph and Audrey, is that it was my experience from the beginning. I met them first, that they made this whole journey in BIM Heroes feel very personal. I felt that it was very personal for me. They heard me, they saw me, they were interested in what kind of a profile I am. And also I took it up upon me, because then I thought, okay, like, yeah, this is all about it. Like, we are spread all around the world, and everything feels very personal. So if we can achieve this at any given project or a company, that we are interested in each other, show interest, ask a simple question that refers to the person, a specific person, right? Then I think we can create it. Also, another, like my previous person, like manager at my work, he took every month 1.5 hour with everybody on the team. I think we were at least more than 20 people, but he did this every month. He wanted to talk to us separately, just to hear. We could also tell him a story about what we did in our free time, but we could also come and say something work-wise, what we feel or need or experience. But I think in this way, he showed us a very ethical way of dealing with the whole team. It was very sustainable. I think it's still going on at this team. I'm not there anymore, but I know for a fact that everybody feels it.
Mm-hmm. And those are the memories that we take with us. And again, back to the legacy of great leadership, when we've experienced that kind of leadership, it becomes a part of our DNA. And when we in turn share that with others, it's our hope, of course, that it will become part of their DNA. Gabriel, any reaction to that question about how we ensure that this DNA we're talking about becomes a part of those who follow?
Yeah, I think we've come across again to this parallel between the rigid and the flexible, because as we want to pass on our values and principles, and we want to teach the next generations, we need to have these values and principles very solid and very clear to everybody to understand. But at the same time, as Andrijana said, we need to consider that we are dealing to all kinds of people. Everybody is different from each other. We need to understand that everyone is a whole different world. Everybody has their own backgrounds, the cultural background, the family backgrounds, professional. And as we are able to understand that, we can at the same time we need to be able to adapt to these values and perspectives at the same time that we are witnessing the extremely fast change in technology, the AI, and like we couldn't imagine doing certain things 20 years ago. And as everybody is using ChatGPT, I don't know, many tools are being created at this moment. So the point here is, how can we make these principles and values really solid, but at the same time we can be prepared to these changes, and we can be able to be adaptable to the future, as we don't know what's going to emerge in the future.
Well, with that in mind, Gabriel, I think that's a great place for us to bring our conversation to a close. Let me ask you both, in terms of this leaving our legacy for others, if you had to be remembered by the teams and the people that you've influenced, how would you like them to see your legacy? Andrijana, what would you like the folks who remember you to think about you and remember what you've taught them about these concepts of collaboration and leadership?
Yeah, it would be my greatest pleasure that both specific people, but also on maybe on a more team level, that I would be remembered as somebody who contributed to the inclusion, like the inclusive aspect of being a part of a team. Yeah, and also, like, I had this idea before the webinar that I would like to try this once if I get the chance to be a team manager, to ask not only by the anonymous survey, but also like brave to ask the team, what do you think we should change? And to act on the proposals. Because I think this is actually the biggest challenge, like to hear what others actually feel that needs to change and make something out of it, like come with an answer, provide something, and so on. So maybe those two things, yeah, inclusiveness and openness to ideas. Because if people say about me that they felt that they could come with any idea, then it would be the greatest achievement I would ever make.
Well, that's fabulous, and I can tell you, Andrijana, I'm confident that that will be your legacy because it means so much to me. Gabriel, do you have a legacy you would like to leave for others to think of you?
Actually, I don't care about being remembered. People remember my name. I think my wish is to leave the legacy to, like, okay, it's I cannot separate this my name from the legacy, but I want to be the one that made a difference, made the world a little bit better than when I received it, to leave it to pass on a little bit better. So I think that everybody has the same thought here. So we agree on that.
Well, I think we agree on a lot, and I think that's what distinguishes leaders like those of you. We clearly are at the end of our time together, but I have to just tell you what a delight it has been. And I would like to confirm that for both of you, there is a legacy that you're leaving, and it's a great legacy. And as you suggest, Gabriel, it's not so much about your name, but it's about what you've taught others that can help bring them to a new level of leadership and exponential change. As you've said, our world is going to be changing faster and faster and faster. And so therefore, how do we live in that state of tension, as we've already talked about, with dignity, with courage, and with inclusiveness? And to me, the two of you are definite examples of exactly that. So let me assure you that there is a legacy, may not bear your name, and it doesn't matter if it does, but you're teaching others how to be effective, respectful, and productive all at the same time. So with that, we're going to close our last webinar on leadership and its characteristics, and hopefully it will leave a legacy for others to be able to build upon and make even better than we could ever have made it ourselves. So we will sign off now and give thanks to Ken and the group that are making this all work together, and look forward to our next interactions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.